This is a Gateway 500 PC. I recently picked up locally. I didn't pay that much for it, I got a good deal on it. I know it has a Pentium 3 in there, it's got a Windows 98 sticker on it, but that's about all I know. I've been struggling to get a good angle on this because I have limited space. So what I'm going to do is we'll set up the overhead cam, we'll have a look at what cards are inside, what hardware is actually in it, and we'll see if we can clean it up, do a bit of a restoration. So I'm just going to take the side cover off. Okay, so immediately you can see Gateway's old solution. So we have a slot 1 Pentium 3. I'm going to guess that's about 500 megahertz, hence the 500 badge at the front. But you can see this dumb system of cooling. So we have a fan in the power supply, which is marked 200 watts. And we have this kind of tunnel, this chamber that sits over it, so it draws the air across the fins on the heatsink on the processor and out the back. That's a really bad way of cooling any CPU, so I'll be probably replacing this power supply and finding a better solution for cooling the Pentium CPU. Okay, so we have an ATI Rage 128. Yeah, it's a graphics card. That's about all I can say about that. So let's pull this out. Okay, so what we have here is a creative PCI sound card. Yeah, I think I had this exact same card in my Gateway machine back in the day. Nothing special. It's quite hard to actually get the correct driver for these ones. It might be worth looking up the Gateway service CD, driver CD for this machine, to get the correct driver, because this is, you know, if you go onto Creative's website you'll probably find drivers for old cards. As I did in the past, you won't find a driver for this one, or if you do find a driver you may have trouble, because yeah. But yeah, that's the audio card, nothing special there. Okay, so there you go. It says Tevian, UK and Ireland. That to me is a capture card or a TV card. It has AV in, S-video in, audio in, FM TV, and RM. Yeah, and audio out. Yeah, that's a TV card. Tevian, I've seen Tevian stuff on sale in Lidl and Aldi and places like that, but I haven't seen this particular one. I was hoping that if this was a TV card that it would be a Win TV, but then again, Tevian, it could be fine. We should be able to find drivers for it. Again, nice and dusty, that'll need cleaning. Yeah, so that's your standard standard modem from back in the day, as you can see, nice and yeah, nice and dusty. So that'll be coming out. I think this takes 3 times 128 megabytes is the max. So I think that's what we're looking at here, is 128 megabytes of RAM. Yeah, and this looks like your bargain RAM, to be honest with you. Okay, so let's have a look at our processor. It's Pentium 3, 500 megahertz, 512 kilobytes of cache, 100 megahertz front side bus, 2 volts V-core, I imagine. There's some things I miss about older cases. This kind of crap isn't one of them. I miss having 5.5 inch bays. I don't miss this crap. There's washers on some of these. That's interesting. Okay, so you can see that this is just kind of sat on there, and that the I/O plate is part of the actual case. And I can see blank spots here for other stuff. So that was literally just stuck on depending on the motherboard. So that's quite cool. So okay, let me continue kind of stripping this down. Yeah, they're like me, they only did one side. So that's the drive out. Again, needs dusting. I may open it up and just clean the lens. So that's the top piece off there, and I think that holds this side panel on, which, interesting enough, is plastic. It's not metal and is filthy. 2 more screws for the floppy. Panasonic, good brand, floppy. Yeah, that's probably going to need greasing and cleaning. It's just dusty, I guess, like everything else. So here is one of the 3.5 inch bays, and it's got this little cover on it, and I'll pop that off in a second, but I just wanted you to kind of have a look. If you can see that kind of shininess, the sparkles, that's not dust. What's happened here is tendrils have formed on the surface of the aluminium. Now this can happen for many reasons. There's a science behind it, I think. But when you're mixing your metals, these can form. Now the problem with this is I'm not putting this back into the case in this state. I'll probably seal these up with some kind of paint, but that sparkliness, that's not good. Like, yeah, it's not simple dust. It'd be great if it was, but I don't think that's what it is. We're going to have to seal these up before we put them back in. Otherwise, you know, it's going to continue reacting with the metal around it. Yeah, something to do with electrons and migration and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's not good. It shouldn't sparkle like that. That happens with aluminium and under certain circumstances. So yeah, we're going to have to spray paint these. So I've stripped the entire case down. Everything, the kind of front cover here, the plastic is soaking. I wiped it down with a bit of soapy water and stuff, and I've just left it to soak for now. Yeah, so this still has bits of dust and crap here and there. So I'm just going to wipe it all down, clean everything as best I can. Make sure that the case is completely dust free before I start introducing kind of parts to it again. Other than the kind of gateway serial numbers and markings, I don't know too much about this mainboard, other than that it has an Intel chipset and that it's a slot 1, 100 megahertz front side bus. But if we look at the processor, so this was the processor that had like the funnel sitting over going up into the actual power supply. A really crap way of getting air to flow across the fins of the heatsink. So if we look at the processor itself, it's a 500 megahertz. What is that? 512 kilobytes, 100 megahertz front side bus, 2 volt processor. So rather than put that one back in, I actually have another Pentium 3 here, slot 1, and if you can see, I'll see if it'll focus, but it's basically the exact same processor. 500 megahertz, 512 kilobytes of cache, 100 megahertz front side bus, and 2 volts. So we'll put this one on the system instead. That way we have the actual fan for cooling, and we can just get rid of that silly funnel that sat across the system and get more air moving through there. It doesn't actually say on it, but yeah, I believe that's 128 megabytes. We'll stick with that. I'll have a look. If I have other RAM, we'll slot it in, but I think we'll just stick with that. What I do want to do is go over this board again and just kind of get the air duster to it briefly, maybe put some contact cleaner in the different slots. I took the power supply apart, 200 watt. I mean, yeah, it's not going to win any races, but I don't think a system like this needs a whole lot of wattage. I'm not going to be putting any major power consuming devices in there. We can see on the output of the plus 5 volts it says max 18 amps. Yeah, I don't know about that, but you know, we're not going to be pushing 18 amps down the 5 volt rail of this anytime soon. I wonder if Gateway would have survived if they made different choices, gone with different hardware vendors. There's a few things that aren't going back in the machine, i.e. this modem. You notice I haven't even cleaned it. That's because that's gone. Unfortunately, you know, some retro hardware is worth holding on to and it's quite fun to have. Modems aren't one of them. So the Tevion TV card, I guess. I'm going to take a photo of this before I put it back in. I want to find a nice spot for it too. I think, you know, we've got an ISA down here. I assume if I use that ISA I can't use this, so I may cover that up, that slot, and just put it in here. I'm going to install the Creative Sound card. Again, I'm going to take pictures of most of this. Yeah, that's still quite dirty, so I might give that a rub with alcohol. I'll do that with everything. Yeah, but some cards aren't going back in, some are. Yeah, we're going to go back with just the standard stock 128 megabytes of RAM. It's more than enough for a system of this kind of era and size. So I'm getting text messages, but I'm just going to put a healthy bit of contact cleaner in both slots. Now I checked the capacitors. I haven't checked the capacitance of the capacitors, but I have checked them. See if they're bulging. They appear fine. They're 3,300 microfarad. I do have some 3,300 microfarad, so we'll see. We might put some in there. So, because this is the closest fan header, that's where I'm going to put the fan for now. Let's go with some more spray. So the system is basically back together. I've put Maxter hard drive in there. Yeah, we're using a spin and rust, but that's because I really don't see much point in putting an SSD in this, because I'd need to use an IDE to SATA, PATA to SATA converter, and yeah, it just gets a little silly at that stage. I put the ATI Rage 128 back in there. You know, this is a no frills bargain card, probably came with the machine. I could, you know, I perhaps could like put like a GeForce 256. This is the SDR flavored one. I don't know. It probably would, you know, boost the capabilities of the machine. What would be perfect for this is a Voodoo 3 2000, I think, or a Voodoo 3 3000. Maybe the 2000, considering we have the 500 megahertz processor and we're limited on the front side bus to 100 megahertz. Yeah, maybe a Voodoo would be good in that, or ideally a Riva, NVIDIA Riva TNT2 or TNT2 Ultra or something like that, and kind of maxes it out. It's a no-frills system. We've gone with the Creative Labs PCI audio card. Again, you've got to watch out for drivers with these. I'm still hunting down the disc, the CD disc with all the kind of gateway service disc as such. I'm sure that's on archive.org, so I'll have a look for that. Looking further into our card here, the Tevion capture card. These were sold in Aldi, I believe, back around 2005, 2006, so much later than our machine here, which there was no hard drive at this machine, but that leads me to believe that this was running Windows XP, because there's no driver for this card under Windows 98. This would have made for a very poor computing experience with Windows XP 32-bit on a Pentium 3. Windows 98 with the unofficial service packs is a much better choice for a machine like this, and indeed that's what we're going to be installing on here. Maybe not even the unofficial, maybe just as far as Service Pack 2. Yeah, so we've left the PCI card in there. They're not great. I'll have to find the right driver for it. I had trouble getting a driver for this before on an older Windows 98 system, and it started blue screening with the driver I got from the Creative website, so I'll try and hunt down the service disk. It's bound to have the correct driver for this. Gateway were using this PCI, Creative PCI audio card for years. I think they were putting it into computers for 3 or 4 years. It was definitely in a machine I got in 2001, and I've seen it in machines going back to like 98, 1999 and stuff, which I think this is the appropriate vintage. This is 1999. So yeah, what about this Tevion card? Well, it's actually a generic card. You'll find this card under the Philips brand. I think you can see in it there, it says 713XTV _BNC. The _BNC part doesn't matter, but it's this is the main show here, the Philips controller. I think Philips designed the chip, but they also made the reference board, and then just much like graphics cards, there are loads of different versions of this under different branding. You'll just see a different sticker over here. You can get drivers for it. I'll try and put a link in the description to the drivers. Yeah, I had to do some serious googling to find the drivers, so I don't know, I might upload them to archive.org or something like that, just so that they're there. But yeah, so this isn't designed for a Windows XP machine, so I might put it in one of my XP builds and just test it out. I'll do an image of the current SSD before I install it, because I don't, you know, I'm expecting to have trouble with this. But yeah, it can do some cool stuff. I think, you know, it's probably going to use like generic software. I've found an image of the disc CD this came with, and there is some like crappy software there that we're probably not going to use, but we'll see if we can use some kind of standalone stuff from back in the day to get this working. Might be cool to capture some PlayStation footage on a Windows XP using this card, but that's for a later project. Or maybe PlayStation 2 actually would be more appropriate for this era of card. So we're also sticking with the 128 megabytes of RAM that came with the machine. Again, Windows 98, 128 is loads. I have my other kind of daily driver Windows 98 system. I have like a full complement of RAM in that, but I don't think there's any point in maxing out this system. It's fine with 128. Again, it's 500 megahertz. If I had like a 7 or an 800, which I think is the max for this board, 800 megahertz, I may consider putting in populating a few more of those DIMMs, and putting in a fancier sound card and maybe a better graphics card. But for this setup, I think it's fine the way it is. If I sell this on, which I might do, then in the future, probably hold on to it for a while and kind of put it through its paces, but hold on to it for like a year or two. But it's a good base system to start with for someone who wants to get into retro PC gaming and stuff like that. They could upgrade the processor, put in a fancy graphics card, modernize the storage solution over to SATA, something solid state, get a nicer creative Sound Blaster Live or something in there. And more memory and maybe a slightly better power supply. But other than that, I mean, this is kind of the system restored as such. We've gotten rid of the silly cooling solution. We now have a fan on our CPU rather than this silly funnel thing. And yeah, the system now is going to last. One thing I do have to do is replace the CR2032, because I'm sure that is flat as. So one thing I did do is I moved the drives around, so we have the CD-ROM at the top with the floppy drive below, and I think it just looks a little bit smarter. One thing I haven't had much luck with is this kind of orange staining that you can kind of see on the case. I managed to get like barely any of it off, I guess, with some plastic polish for cars, Plastex. And I tried like alcohol, I've tried water. I'll have another go maybe with other kind of solvents. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be, it's as if something was pushed up against this. Like either a plastic of this kind of orangey colour or some kind of paint or varnish of some kind. Yeah, it looks like it rubbed off it. With just the kind of vertical strokes that are on the kind of marks. But yeah, I'll continue. I'll try a few different solvents, try and get it off. It'd be nice to get it back and just remove those marks. So one thing we've got to do is we have to change the CR2032. So this is the old one, Panasonic, not a bad brand. I have a nice fresh Energizer one here, so that should do the trick. And there we go. So that's the drivers installed. We've got this silly ATI kind of thing here. But yeah, we can go into properties, settings. It's coming up as Expert 99 / Expert 2000. Yeah, whatever. But yeah, it seems to be working. Wait, let me just see if we have 3D Mark 99. Try and run 3D Mark 99. So I'm just going to use one of my favourite games, Clive Barker's Undying, because I know it has a copy of DirectX 8 on it, so I think we're going to need that. So here we are with 3D Mark 99. Might be a bit of fun, but the card is coming up as Expert 99 or Expert 2000. I don't know if that's correct. To be honest, I'm beyond caring. It's just a ATI Rage 128 So there you can see 3,461 3D marks, 7,776 CPU 3D marks. So yeah, that just for a laugh. I'm not too pushed about, you know, where it stacks up or anything like that. Just to give others an idea of, you know, what the system's like. I mean, this is a bare bones basic system with an upgrade path for someone who wants a slot 1 Pentium 3 system. Yeah, so that's been a look at the Gateway 500 Windows 98 PC. Nice little PC. Strange to have it paired with a Dell monitor and an IBM keyboard, but there you go. I'll probably hold on to this machine for a while. I'll think about upgrading it. I'll think about kind of potential upgrades for it, but I think in its current configuration it's fine. So cool, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll chat to you all again.